I, 30F, have been married to my husband Ben, 32M, for 5 years now. We met in college during our senior year when we were paired up for a group project in our general education class. Ben was studying to become a teacher while I was pursuing marketing. Even though we were in different fields, we clicked instantly. He was funny, kind, and so passionate about wanting to make a difference in students' lives. I fell in love with his dedication and how he could light up any room with his smile. My mother passed away from cancer when I was 12. She was diagnosed when I was 10, and those 2 years were really hard on all of us. My father, Mark, 58M, took her death particularly hard and threw himself into work to cope. For 3 years, it was just the two of us, and we were really close during that time. He was both my mom and dad, and even though he worked a lot, he always made time for me. Everything changed when he met Diana, 45F, at a business conference. She came from old money and had never worked a day in her life. Her family owned several successful businesses, and she lived off her trust fund. They dated for 6 months before getting married when I was 15. I was happy for my dad because he seemed to smile more, but Diana and I never really connected. From the beginning, Diana was obsessed with status and appearances. She completely redecorated our house, saying it looked too middle class. She threw out furniture my mom had picked out, claiming it was outdated. When I protested, she told me I needed to learn about quality and class. My father never said anything, probably because he was afraid of being alone again. Diana constantly talked about money. She would comment on people's clothes, cars, and houses, always comparing them to what she had. Every conversation somehow turned into a discussion about wealth or status. She even started pushing my father to move to a more upscale neighborhood because she was embarrassed about living in our current one. When I started college, Diana insisted I major in business or law because those were proper careers for someone of our status. She was disappointed when I chose marketing, saying it wasn't prestigious enough. But at least marketing was business-related, so she didn't completely disapprove. Then I met Ben in my final year. On our first date, he told me about his dream of becoming a high school teacher and helping students who struggled like he did with dyslexia. I found his passion inspiring, but when I told Diana and my father about him, their reaction was awful. Diana immediately started researching his family background. When she found out his parents owned a small bookstore and lived in a modest neighborhood, she told me I needed to think about my future. She said dating someone like Ben would only hold me back in life. My father, who by then owned a successful construction company thanks to Diana's family's connections, agreed with her. He said I deserved someone more ambitious. Despite their disapproval, Ben and I continued dating. He would come over for family dinners, and Diana would spend the entire time making subtle digs about his career choice. She would talk about her friends' children who were becoming doctors and lawyers, then look at Ben and say how brave it was that some people chose passion over success. When we got engaged after 2 years of dating, Diana threw a fit. She said I was throwing my life away on someone who would never be able to provide the lifestyle I deserved. My father took me aside and offered to introduce me to the son of his business partner, saying it wasn't too late to make a better choice. We had a small wedding because that's what we wanted and could afford. Diana made it her mission to tell everyone how disappointing it was. She complained about everything, from the venue to the food to the decorations. She told her friends she was embarrassed to attend such a budget wedding. My father refused to contribute anything, saying if we couldn't afford a proper wedding, we weren't ready for marriage. The first few years of our marriage were peaceful because we limited contact with them. Ben and I bought a small apartment, started our careers, and were happy. I advanced in my marketing career while Ben became a beloved teacher at his school. We weren't rich, but we had everything we needed. Last week, Diana invited us for dinner to celebrate my father landing a major construction contract. She mentioned she was inviting some important business associates and their families, and it would mean a lot to my father if we attended. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The dinner was at an expensive restaurant Diana had rented out for the evening. From the moment we arrived, she started her usual behavior. She kept pointing out how everyone else was wearing designer clothes while making obvious glances at Ben's department store suit. She bragged about their new vacation home and my father's business success. Then, during the main course, she turned to Ben and asked him loudly across the table how it felt to be the poorest person at the dinner. The entire table went quiet. She didn't stop there. She said she was genuinely curious about how someone could be content earning so little when they had the potential to do better. My father laughed and added that real men provide better lives for their wives. I watched Ben's face fall. This man who is usually so confident and happy looked completely humiliated. His hands were shaking slightly as he put down his fork. Before he could respond, I stood up and told them both they were disgusting people who cared about nothing but money. I said Ben was worth 10 of them because he actually made a difference in people's lives instead of just hoarding wealth and looking down on others. Diana started crying, doing her usual victim act. She said she was just concerned about my future and wanted what was best for me. My father got angry and demanded I apologize to Diana for ruining dinner and embarrassing him in front of his business associates. I refused and told them both I was done with their toxic behavior. I grabbed Ben's hand, and we left immediately. The car ride home was silent. Ben kept staring out the window, and I could tell he was fighting back tears. When we got home, he broke down and told me he was sorry that my relationship with my father was strained because of him. He offered to try harder to fit in with their world or find a better paying job. It broke my heart to hear him apologize for being who he is. I told him he had nothing to apologize for and that I was done with both of them. I blocked them on my phone and all social media. My father has been calling from different numbers, leaving messages saying I'm overreacting and need to make peace with Diana. Some family members are saying I should forgive them because they're family and meant well. But I don't think I can ever forget how they humiliated the kindest person I know, someone who spends his days helping children learn and grow while they spend their days counting money and judging others. Ida for cutting them off? Update 1: The past 2 weeks have been absolute chaos. After I blocked them, I thought I would get some peace to process everything that happened, but Diana made sure that wasn't possible. She started a full-blown smear campaign against Ben and our extended family, making him out to be some kind of manipulative monster. It started with my Aunt Lisa calling me at work, sobbing. She said she needed to speak with me urgently and alone, without Ben present. When I met her for coffee after work, she could barely look me in the eyes. She told me Diana had been calling every family member, telling them Ben was financially abusing me and had isolated me from my family. According to Diana's version, Ben had been systematically cutting me off from my family since we started dating. She claimed he was jealous of my father's success and felt threatened by my family's wealth. She told everyone that Ben controlled all our finances and forced me to work extra hours while he lounged around all summer because teachers get vacations. The accusations got worse. Diana told people that Ben had convinced me to take out loans in my name to fund his gambling habit. That was completely false. We had some student loans, but they were from before we met. She even suggested that Ben had threatened to hurt himself if I ever talked about leaving him, painting him as emotionally manipulative. My cousin Rachel believed Diana and posted on Facebook about how worried she was about me, asking mutual friends to help me escape my abusive marriage. Several people commented offering help and sharing domestic abuse hotline numbers. It was humiliating and infuriating to see people discussing my marriage like this. I found out that Diana had even gone to Ben's school. She approached the principal with fake concerns about Ben's stability, suggesting he might not be fit to work with children. Thankfully, the principal knew Ben's character and dismissed her claims, but Ben was devastated when he found out. He's scared this could affect his career if Diana keeps spreading lies. My father has been enabling all of this. When my uncle called him to verify Diana's stories, instead of telling the truth, he said he had noticed concerning changes in my behavior since meeting Ben. He told people Ben had isolated me from family events, when the truth was we stopped attending because of their constant belittling of Ben's career. The worst part was discovering that my father had been telling his business associates a completely different story. He told them I had married Ben because I was pregnant and felt trapped. When the pregnancy supposedly ended in miscarriage, he claimed I stayed with Ben out of guilt. I've never been pregnant, and it makes me sick that he would make up such lies just to save face in front of his rich friends. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I wrote a detailed email to our entire extended family. I started with Diana's most recent lies and systematically debunked each one. Then I shared specific instances of their behavior over the years, the time Diana told Ben he should park his car around the corner during family gatherings because it embarrassed her to have an old Toyota in her driveway, when my father offered to pay for a divorce lawyer if I left Ben, saying he had several more suitable candidates in mind, how Diana would send me listings for better jobs to give to Ben, all while making comments about how teaching was more of a hobby than a career, the countless times they manipulated family events to clash with Ben's teaching schedule, then claimed he was antisocial for not attending, how they excluded Ben from the family Christmas card photo last year, saying it was for blood relatives only, but included Diana's nephew. The response to my email was both eye-opening and heartbreaking. Some family members were horrified by Diana's behavior and apologized for believing her lies. My cousin Amy admitted Diana had been pushing her to set me up with her husband's investment banker friend, claiming my marriage was on the rocks. But others doubled down on their support of Diana. My cousin Sarah suggested that maybe Diana was right, that I was too emotionally invested to see how Ben was holding me back. She pointed out that I could have married someone who would have given me a life of luxury instead of having to work. It showed me how deeply Diana's materialistic values had infected our family. A few relatives tried to play peacemaker, suggesting family counseling or mediation. They said Diana must be acting this way because she cares about me and wants what's best. But spreading malicious lies about Ben and trying to damage his career isn't caring, it's cruel and calculated. Ben has been incredibly strong through all of this, but I can see it's wearing him down. Last night, he asked me if I was sure I didn't want the kind of life my father and Diana could provide. It broke my heart. This wonderful man who spends his summers running free tutoring programs for struggling students was questioning his worth because of their superficial values. I'm actually glad this happened. Now everyone can see Diana and my father for who they really are, shallow, materialistic people who care more about appearances than family. No amount of money is worth staying connected to people who would try to destroy someone's reputation and career just because they don't meet their standards of financial success. Update 2. Just when I thought this situation couldn't get more twisted, I discovered something that changed everything. My mother's sister, Aunt Carol, reached out to me after seeing my email about Diana's behavior. She had been living abroad for the past decade and wasn't very active on social media, so she hadn't known about all the drama. We met for coffee, and she asked me about my student loans. I explained how I had to take out loans for college because my father said he couldn't afford to help, even though his construction business was doing well by then. Aunt Carol's face went pale. She revealed that before my mother died, she had taken out a substantial life insurance policy. Mom knew her cancer was terminal and wanted to make sure I would be taken care of, especially regarding my education. The policy was worth $500,000, and my father was supposed to use it specifically for my college education and future needs. Aunt Carol had all the documentation. She showed me letters my mother had written, explicitly stating her wishes for the money. She even had emails from the insurance company confirming the payout to my father shortly after Mom's death. My father had never mentioned any of this to me. When I confronted him, he tried to dodge the conversation at first. But when I told him I had proof of the insurance policy, he finally admitted everything. He had used the money as capital to start his construction company, the same company he always bragged about building from scratch with his own hard work. His justification made me sick. He said he knew my mother wanted the money to secure my future, and by using it to start a successful business, he had done exactly that. He claimed he was planning to leave me the company anyway, so technically, I would get the money back eventually. But it got worse. Diana knew about the money all along. She had found the insurance documents years ago and had actually been the one to suggest using what was left of it, around $150,000, to renovate their vacation home last year. Money that was meant for my education and future was used to install a pool and home theater in their beach house. The timing of this revelation hit particularly hard. Ben and I had been trying to save for a house down payment for the past 3 years. We live in a small apartment, carefully budgeting every month, while my father and Diana live luxuriously with money that should have been mine. I started thinking about all the times they mocked Ben's salary or my career choices. All those snide comments about us not being able to afford a better apartment or a fancier wedding. All while they were literally living off money that was meant for me. When word got out about the insurance money, my father suddenly changed his tune. He started calling with offers to help us buy a house, saying he wanted to make things right. Diana even sent an email suggesting we look at houses in their neighborhood, acting like nothing had happened and this was all just a big misunderstanding. But it's too late. I consulted with a lawyer who specializes in estate law. She said I might have a case because there's clear documentation of my mother's intentions for the money, and my father essentially misappropriated funds that were meant for my education and future. The lawyer also pointed out that my father's emails offering to buy us a house now could be seen as an admission of guilt. He knows he did something wrong and is trying to cover his tracks. We're preparing to file a civil suit. Some family members think I'm being greedy by pursuing legal action. They say I should be grateful that my father turned the money into a successful business. My cousin even suggested that this proves Diana was right about Ben's influence, that he's making me sue my own father for money. But this isn't about the money anymore. It's about my mother's last wish being completely disregarded. It's about my father and Diana living in luxury while mocking Ben and me for our modest lifestyle, knowing all along they got their start with money that should have helped us build our life together. I don't even care if we win the lawsuit. I just want everyone to know the truth about how my father built his precious company, with money stolen from his dead wife's daughter. Update 3. The legal battle over my mother's life insurance money is moving slowly through the courts, but that's not why I'm writing this final update. Something happened at my cousin Rachel's wedding last weekend that I need to share. I initially wasn't going to attend. Rachel was one of the family members who had sided with Diana, even after learning about the insurance money. But she reached out personally, saying she wanted both sides of the family to be present on her special day. Ben encouraged me to go, saying I shouldn't miss important family events because of Diana and my father. He offered to stay home to avoid drama, Knowing his presence would make things tense. The wedding was at an upscale country club, exactly the kind of venue Diana loves. From the moment I arrived, I could feel people watching me. Some relatives came up to hug me, others pretended not to see me. I was seated at a table far from my father and Diana, which was fine by me. But Diana couldn't leave well enough alone. During the reception, she made her way to my table, clearly tipsy from champagne. She hugged me like nothing had happened, loudly announcing to everyone nearby that she was so happy we had reconciled. When I pushed her away, she started her crying routine, asking why I was still being so cruel to her when she only ever wanted to be my mother. Then she did something unforgivable. She turned to the other guests at my table and said, "Poor Ben couldn't make it. He's too ashamed to be around successful people. It must be hard being a teacher when everyone else here is actually somebody." She laughed like it was a joke, but I saw several people cringe. I'd had enough. The last 6 months of legal battles and family drama had worn down my patience. I stood up and decided to give everyone the show they were apparently waiting for. I told them everything, about how Diana and my father had spent years belittling Ben's career choice, about the life insurance money they stole from me, about Diana's attempts to ruin Ben's reputation at his school. My father tried to interrupt, but I wasn't finished. I talked about how Ben spent his summers running free tutoring programs for underprivileged kids while they spent my mother's money on beach house renovations. I told them how Ben had encouraged me to attend this wedding despite everything, because he was a bigger person than any of them. Diana tried to play victim again, saying I was being dramatic and ruining another family event. That's when my Aunt Carol stood up and confirmed everything I'd said about the insurance money. Other relatives started speaking up too, sharing times they'd witnessed Diana's cruel behavior. The bride was crying, the guests were whispering, and Diana was having a meltdown. My father just sat there, staring at his plate. I ended by saying I'd rather be married to a teacher who makes the world better than be part of a family who thinks money is all that matters. I left the wedding and haven't looked back. Several relatives have cut contact, saying I'm the toxic one for causing a scene. Others have reached out to apologize for not standing up for Ben sooner. My father's business associates have started asking questions about the insurance money, which is apparently causing problems for him. Ben and I recently moved to a different city where he accepted a position as head of the English department at a progressive private school. The salary is better, but more importantly, he's happy and respected for his work. I've started my own marketing consultancy, and we're doing well. We bought a small house, nothing fancy, but it's ours. Sometimes I think about Diana and my father in their big empty house, counting their money and judging others. I realize now that cutting toxic people out of your life isn't just about standing up for yourself, it's about choosing what kind of person you want to be. The lawsuit continues, but honestly, I don't care about the money anymore. I just want them to admit what they did to my mother's last wish. Ben and I are happy in our modest life, rich in ways Diana and my father could never understand.